What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Shift Managers Podcast. Austin Devin, as
Yep,
always.
that's me.
It really is just that easy. All right, that's the show, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Week 2 of Dynasty rankings, the running back position. The most, the scariest position in fantasy football. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. No. Running back is like probably the least fun position to speculate on and the most fun position to draft from. It's where you plant your flag. Running back is a place where you stake your claim and you live with the consequences. This is coming from the guy that drafted Kamara everywhere last year at the discount. You have to make your bets and live with them, unless you're able to trade out of it with like receiver depth. But you live and die by running backs.
Yeah.
And shout out Jonathan Taylor for everybody that had the first overall pick in drafts, because that's the crux of this discussion. It's whenever you draft a guy in the first round and he effectively could have been a 6th round pick.
Yeah, honestly, a running back probably shouldn't be the 101 this year. Probably should be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. In a non-super flex league, I should say. I should make that clear.
In a standard one quarterback PPR league, no tight end premium. Yes, I think you're going to see. I think you probably don't take running back until pick 4 or 5 coming into this year's draft. And you got to be really confident. I remember my first year playing Saquon's rookie year. Somebody took him like 9th overall in a 10-teamer, and like the run on running backs is going to happen, but I don't think what we saw this year is going to happen next year, because it was consensus. If you weren't taking quarterbacks in round 1, it was probably 4 or 5 backs went in the first round, and you could expect like 10 of them within the first 2, depending on the size of the league, because that's just the value of what it seemed like. But I think over the last couple of years, I've seen a shift in the leagues that I play in, at least, where running backs just don't matter as much. You effectively need a stud starter, someone you could put into your lineup, get you that 12 to 14 points. Your second guy can be a little more volatile. And if you have the receiver depth that you got from rounds 1 through 3, so you got 2 receivers and a flex and you have to start 2 running backs, you're usually better off, because the way that the league has changed and how expanded the passing games truly are, running backs kind of feel like they're getting left in the dust, because you don't get a point per carry. You get a point per reception.
Well, they're getting turned into dust is the true problem, is that they're all hurt. Like our consensus number 1. Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Breece Hall, absolutely. I just want to put this up real quick, Johnny. I feel Johnny. I feel this so much sometimes.
It's only a scam if you feel bad afterwards. So sorry for your league mates.
Breece Hall.
Yeah, I love Breece. This is coming from somebody who reluctantly drafted him in 1 league. I was out on Breece Hall. I was like, because the thing with me is I'm a little ignorant whenever it comes to rookie running backs. I don't like to believe the hype a lot of the time. I was late to Jalen Waddle his rookie year. I'm basically late to most rookies, and that's been my biggest Achilles heel in my fantasy career. Is I like the year 2 guys a lot more than I like the rookies a lot of the time. And I think with running back, I just got to eat crow and grow up. Rookie running backs are worth their weight in gold, at least the top tier of them. Kenneth Walker won people fantasy leagues because of how cheap he was on draft day and the fact you could pick him up off of waivers by around, it felt like week 6, week 7, week 8, depending on the size of the league. If you were in a super deep dynasty league, Kenneth Walker was not available, but in redraft, Kenneth Walker won leagues. Breece Hall was the single best running back I rostered last year. Besides, I got very fortunate with running back last year, but out of all the young guys I took, Breece lived up to the hype. I wasn't sure that he was going to be able to come close to it, because it was steep. Like, for lack of better terms, it was a very high clip to hit for him to pay dirt on where he was being drafted. And that's like the 3rd round. I wasn't familiar with his game. But out of the sample we got last season and the lack of severity of his knee injury, I get it's an ACL, but we've seen far worse knee injuries over the last 2 calendar years, where I'm comfortable with modern medicine getting this guy back to full capacity. And he showed me in the time that he was leading the backfield that there's not really anybody that's going to touch him in terms of overall talent and touch capacity. You bring in a better quarterback, that's going to make Breece Hall one of the most electric players in fantasy because Garrett Wilson's a problem. You still have Corey Davis. They still have Elijah Moore, surprisingly. And you're not going to be able to stack a box, is what I have to say in regards to Breece Hall.
Yeah, Breece Hall is just a freaking monster. He played 7 games, 11 in week 1, 13 in week 2, 15 in week 3, 15, 27, 20, 13. He was a consistent basic 13 every single week, and the dude is 21 years old. And I get that he tore his ACL. That sucks, and that's awful. And they say he could be ready by camp. But if this dude gets a quarterback and they have a passing game open that's actually somewhat fearful, the dude's going to take off. The dude was taking off with Zach Wilson at quarterback. So what do you think he's going to do when guys actually can't stack the box, like you said, against Breece Hall? That's the thing that matters the most.
So to put Breece Hall into perspective, he averaged, let me just get this. He averaged 66.1 yards per game on 5.8 yards per carry. He had a total of 80 rushes on the season in 7 games where he started 2 of them. 5.8 per carry in an offense that was led by Zach Wilson, Mike White, or Joe Flacco. The ceiling is the roof with Breece Hall. As long as he can stay healthy, I think there's a couple of guys that we can look towards that we'll see later on in the list that might have a shot to keep pace with him. But on a per touch basis, what he did last year is insane. And if he can get 200 plus touches on a season, I'm expecting close to 1,200 to 1,500 scrimmage yards, I would think, if he's averaging 5.8 per carry. And he had 4 touchdowns in 7 games. So you give him a 17-game schedule, he's going to get at least 8. And I think he has double-digit upside in terms of scores.
All right, let's talk about, like Johnny said here, being low on JT 28, how he wants to throw Josh Jacobs for Jonathan Taylor, which would be nice if you could get away with it. That would be a scam. That would definitely be a scam. Number 2, I have Bijan Robinson, but Devin has Jonathan Taylor. But just to make this real simple, I have Jonathan Taylor at 3. Devin has Jonathan Taylor or has Bijan Robinson at 3. So really we're interchangeable on this one. The only reason I see a lot of people have Bijan at number 1, I just need to see where he goes at this point. Obviously, his talent is undeniable in this rookie class, especially in the rookie drafts. You're taking him at the 101. That's really not a debate at this point, unless you are extremely desperate for a quarterback or also have the 102. But even if you're extremely desperate quarterback, Bijan might just put up numbers anyways. He's probably going to go late in round 1, maybe early round 2. We'll see. We won't force Devin into his running backs in round 1 rant. But I just need to see where he goes in terms of how he's going to be used. Obviously, he should be the lead back, but in case he were to go somewhere and wasn't the lead back, that would be something to think about. Or if there's a decent running back that's right behind him, maybe they take away some points. Like, the talent is going to be there. The age is right there. Perfect for Dynasty. Perfect to get him early. And, obviously you don't want to trade everything for him. Based off perspective, he could bust. Like, everyone has that chance. But I think mainly just because what I saw from Jonathan Taylor last year, it slightly put me down. But Jonathan Taylor is still young enough and talented enough, and the Colts are still going to attempt to be good. We'll see. They're probably going to end up going with a rookie quarterback, so let's see if that helps. But their O-line is still awful. But like I said, those two are really interchangeable for me. What about you?
I got Jonathan Taylor at 2 because I've seen it. I can believe it. Bijan Robinson is everything that they've He's basically everything that Breece Hall was, but to a higher degree in terms of like what people are projecting for him to be at the NFL level. And I'm going to believe the hype. If you have the one of one in dynasty drafts this year, you're taking Bijan Robinson. He's the consensus one of one.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be cheaper relatively to get Jonathan Taylor on your roster than Bijan Robinson at this point. The biggest thing for me with Jonathan Taylor is the amount of mileage on his body to this point. I know he's 23 years old, but we have to understand just who he was at Wisconsin. He's 24 years old currently. He just turned 24. So I'm not saying the wheels are ever going to fall off before he turns 27. I think that would be a little asinine. But these high carry count guys in college sometimes can deal with injuries in a way that other guys that weren't bell cows in college do. If we look at Melvin Gordon, while he wasn't always injured, Melvin Gordon had issues holding onto the ball. The Wisconsin backs kind of scare me because the Melvin Gordon fall off was real, but it's still Jonathan Taylor. He got almost no. So yeah, he had over 1,000 scrimmage yards in the worst year of his career, and he missed 6 games. 4 touchdowns through the ground.
He's not the worst pass catcher in the world, so that always helps.
70% catch rate last year. He had 28 receptions, over 1,000 scrimmage yards. He fumbled more last season than he ever has in his career on a per game rate. He had 3 on the season compared to last year's 4. He was 80 yards a game, give or take. I like him. I like Jonathan Taylor. Do I think I think he probably could not win comeback player of the year, but I think he's the bounce back candidate for me. If he's not going in the first round, whoever gets him second round is going to get a steal in redraft. Oof. And if you're trying to buy Jonathan Taylor, right now is the time because I think this is the lowest his value will be until he's off of that rookie contract because he's let me just read he's 5'10", 226. And he is insanely fast. Jonathan Taylor, I should have learned whenever I didn't draft him his rookie year. Because his rookie year was fine. Second year was insane. The younger the running back, the easier it is to grab him, especially whenever they have a command of their backfield. The Colts also traded away Nyheim Hines at the trade deadline last year. There's no competition here. It's Jonathan Taylor against the world. On a touch-for-touch basis, until I have Bijan as the number one guy in an offense that's going to get 15 to 20 carries a game. Because besides Jonathan Taylor, there are 2 backs that are going to give you a floor of 20 carries a game. Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is almost 30, and Nick Chubb is still dealing with Kareem Hunt, and Deshaun Watson is going to eat into his carries over the next couple of years. Jonathan Taylor doesn't even have a quarterback yet. So if he gets better quarterback play, it's a plus because he's going to have bigger holes to run through. And if the Colts offensive line can kind of revert to how they were his first 2 years, I just find it incredibly hard for him to fail unless he gets injured. The only thing with him is if he gets hurt again. If he can't give you 17 games, then the price goes down. But a full season of him is, you can't beat it.
A shout out to Johnny for going for it. Godspeed, friend. Godspead.
If they counter with Taylor and a future pick, I'm throwing in the future pick. Like, I do not care. I think Jonathan Taylor, because he's younger than Jacobs, because it's a dynasty league, right?
I would assume as much.
CeeDee Lamb, Miles Sanders, Tyler Higbee, and Tyler Lockett. That is a haul.
That hurts. It hurts the soul. The thing about Jonathan Taylor is that most likely, 95% sure at this point, a rookie quarterback is going to be starting for the Colts next season.
That'll be an improvement.
Whether it's CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, whoever it might be. And what they are going to need is Jonathan Taylor to take pressure off of a rookie quarterback. So he's going to get a lot of touches. He's going to have to get a lot of touches. And realistically, I don't think his ankle injury was as bad last year as it was made out to be or what people thought it was. I just think he stopped playing because it literally meant nothing. They were so far out of it. It didn't matter at that point. It sucked in fantasy, obviously, but the Colts were so far out of it. And Jonathan Taylor is easily the best piece that they have on their roster right now. They had to keep him healthy.
there's no point in running a guy into the ground whenever you're playing for nothing.
Yeah.
We see it year in and year out. Those years when the Saints, I think, were close to 2018. I don't know if the Saints made the playoffs in 2018, but even later in the season, whenever the games don't matter as much, they sat that same year. CMC set the last couple of games. Kamara set the last couple of games. Yeah. Mileage is something for a running back that you don't just continue accumulating unless it is advantageous for your winning during that season, because running backs have juice, but as soon as it's empty, there's no refilling it. That cup cannot be refilled due to the nature of what they're doing week to week.
This is interesting to think about because I think the consensus is that they want to trade up and get Bryce Young. But then I've also heard they like Will Levis, but they also like CJ Stroud. There's been so much talk out of the Colts, I don't know what to believe anymore. But Anthony Richardson would be interesting.
The Colts should want to get CJ Stroud, but so let me look at my draft list. So just the draft order.
Because they're 4? 5?
They're pick 4. So they could stand pat and take CJ Stroud. I think Chicago's trading down, so I think Vegas, Carolina, Indy could trade up to 1 and take Bryce Young. But if they're not going after Bryce, they're taking the next guy, whether it's Levis or Stroud.
Yeah.
Their pick. I think Stroud would be perfect for this Colts offense. I'd love to see them get another perimeter playmaker just because Michael Pittman's good, but I think he's a 2. In terms of like overall talent, there's a definitive separation between your CeeDee Lambs, AJ Browns, like your ones, your like Jamar and Jettas are like the 2 guys right now in terms of the youth, and then you have like the Jalen Waddle, AJ Brown class. But I don't even think Pittman clears that Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill aging superstar. Like I'd still rather have them than Michael Pittman.
Yeah. So we already went over this. For the part we talked about both of them. So number 4, Christian McCaffrey.
Death, taxes, and 1,000-yard seasons.
Brandon Cooks?
At this point, no, because it's straight broke this year, I think. Christian McCaffrey is probably one of the single most valuable running backs of the last decade. Which is crazy to think about because this dude had back-to-back years of being absolute garbage. Like he's put up over 1,000 fantasy points in his career, and he's played 75 games. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. And to be fair, it's basically 4 seasons of Christian McCaffrey that we have.
Yep.
So he's effectively averaging 260 points a season.
Yep.
Whenever he's healthy in full point PPR, he's a guaranteed 1,200 yards whenever he's healthy. And the worst he's had since his rookie year, besides the injured years, was 1,210 yards. But the stretch he pulled off from 2018 through 2021, minus his 2 injury-plagued years, this guy finished with 1965, 2392, and 1880. And he totaled 7, 13, 19. Even the years where he was hurt, he had 6 touchdowns in 3 games, 2 touchdowns in 7, which was not good at all. And then we also had 13 in 2022, which was 10 in San Francisco, 3 in Carolina. Biggest thing moving forward. Christian McCaffrey is now 27 years old. Going to be 27 this coming year. Everyone says, wow, there's like a fall off for running backs. There's not a single player more valuable to their team offensively than Christian McCaffrey in the Niners offense. We saw it whenever he was on the field for them this year, and I don't think that's going to change.
I mean, just in 11 games, 10 games, which he didn't really play the first game anyway. So in 10 games, he rushed for almost 750 yards and almost got 475 receiving yards. So he put up over 1,000 yards in 10 games with San Francisco alone.
He put up 10 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown per game on average for the San Francisco.
And he got a passing touchdown.
This is a guy that hasn't averaged below 4 yards per carry since 2020 when he played 3 games for one of the worst teams in football. You now pair him with one of the league's best offensive lines, arguably the best offensive the best offensive mind in football, albeit Andy Reid is in his own class, but Kyle Shanahan's right up there.
Yep.
It's perfection. This is the setup for CMC going one of one. You could take him as the one of one in redraft this year, and I don't think I would look at you sideways because
I don't
that's the
think you'd be
situation.
disappointed at all.
Because Elijah Mitchell is going to be a compliment, but Christian McCaffrey has always kind of had a compliment in the backfield. He's the definition of a satellite back because the offenses revolve around him. But at this point, the offense doesn't have to fully rely upon him, which is going to make him special. Which is why I think we're probably going to see CMC throughout the rest of his contract in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Just because I think he's going to age. He's going to age extremely well. And he's cheap comparatively to what we're going to see over the next couple of years.
Well, and the thing is, too, about CMC is that that's with San Francisco kind of, putting in Elijah Mitchell and getting other guys some carries there. Like, that's with a somewhat managed workload. Like, you can be scared all you want of his injuries. If you are too scared to take the risk and take CMC with your first pick of your redraft, then I get it. But like in Dynasty, he's going to be valuable for very many years to come. He may get hurt, he may not, but you can't play that game. That's not how you win. It really isn't. If you play the timid game and try to back off of CMC, what he gives you when he is healthy is unmatched. And we see that across the board of how unmatched he truly is when he can play 16, 17 games. He can catch the ball. He's insane at open space. He can even throw the ball randomly at times. And he just absolutely torches dudes. He's fast. He's quick. Elusive. He's everything. He got hurt a couple times and the stock went down. I don't think he could maybe pass Jonathan Taylor in my eyes. But the fact that he's 27 does not help.
That's my thing. I think CMC at 4, this is probably the highest we're going to see him for the rest of his career, just because of the age. And I think the biggest thing about the rookie running backs and the second year guys, anyone that's under 25, they have the inherent advantage of not only being cheap, so they're going to be on the roster as long as they're producing. It's why CEH was literally so highly touted coming out of LSU, because he was on a great offense.
Right.
And he was a first-round running back. First-round running backs hold capital because they're not taken that often, which is why Bijan could be the one of one if he's going in the top 10, because he's going to be used like a top 10 pick. Because running backs are interchangeable in nature, but if a team is willing to invest that much capital into a guy, i.e. the Giants with Saquon, there's certain signals we can look at to the caliber of guy that teams are expecting is going to come in. Jonathan Taylor was a second-round pick, which was a great pick. Breece Hall, second-round pick. The higher the guy is taken, if the talent's there, the safer it's going to feel taking them in drafts, which is why Najee Harris, for as much as I dislike the Steelers situation in the offensive line, is still within my top 10. Because youth, talent, and usage are king. You can't replicate them.
Right. Number 5, Travis Etienne Jr. I love this dude. I think this dude is going to be an absolute stud. I went after him in most of my drafts, and it didn't pay off early, but it made sense. This dude went off in the middle of the season. He put up 14 against Houston, 11.8 against Indy, goes for almost 20 against New York, 25 against Denver, 26 against Las Vegas, and against KC. They go on a bye. He doesn't do anything against Baltimore. I think he got hurt that game, if I remember correctly. And then those next couple games, he still was kind of hurt. He was being, kind of babied isn't the word, but it's the only word I can think of, by Doug Peterson. But then he puts up 14 against Dallas, 14 against the Jets, 23 against Houston. This dude's 24 years old. He has a repertoire with a reputation with his quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. And now Trevor Lawrence is going to end up being Calvin Ridley. He had the passing games wide open. Travis Etienne is a good pass catcher. I'm not going to compare this dude to CMC because I just think CMC is kind of in his own area. I'm not going to do this whole he's the next Tyreek Hill type of thing. But to me, Etienne is like the next closest thing, and can be with the way that offense is tracking with Doug Peterson and the talent that they have.
So doing my research, I just found a really, really interesting wrinkle. And For everyone that's in the Kenneth Walker's top 3 camp, I understand you. I hear you. And in a different universe where PPR isn't king, Kenneth Walker feels a lot like Nick Chubb did in his early years for me. I think Walker has a higher ceiling as a pass catcher. Travis Etienne is everything I wanted him to be and more. I leaned on the fact that Trevor Lawrence played with him in college, and that was important. You want to hear something fun? Something that matters? Travis Etienne started 12 games last season. One more than Kenneth Walker. So Etienne also played in 2 more games than Kenneth Walker, technically. He did get hurt in one of them. So Etienne and Walker, who do you think had more touches last season between the 2 backs?
I would probably say Walker by an inch.
They had the exact same number of touches at 255.
Oh wow!
Not only the only reason that Kenneth Walker, in my opinion, is close to Travis in terms of output last year was because of the touchdown mark. I think Etienne is due for touchdown regression in a positive way. He only found pay dirt 5 times last season. This is a guy that rushed for 1,100, almost 1,100, little over 1,100 yards. He received over 300. He finished the year from scrimmage 1441, and he averaged 9 yards per reception and 5.1 yards per carry.
Damn.
Kenneth Walker put up 4.6 yards per carry, and he had, 6.1 yards per reception. Kenneth Walker projects to, they're the same guy in terms of build. They're both 5'10", 210. They are carbon copies of each other.
They're the same person.
But Travis Etienne is a more dynamic pass catcher, and it's why I have him so highly. His foot injury his rookie year scared me a bit, but he shook all that doubt for me coming out of this year. I think Travis Etienne probably has less competition depending on where the Jacksonville Jaguars draft this year and who they bring in. Etienne feels like the path for him to have consistent usage outside of carries is more for him than it is for Walker, because Rashad Penny still exists. I don't know if he's still going to be on the roster come next season, but Seattle really doesn't give the keys to running backs in a post-Marshawn Lynch reality. Chris Carson always had somebody in his back pocket. Rashad Penny had Kenneth Walker. And I'll be interested to see if Pete Carroll's willing to give the keys to a guy like Kenneth Walker and have him be the new beast mode. Yeah. And I also feel it's all going to depend on the receivers for me. If Tyler Lockett ages poorly, Kenneth Walker's value goes up. If Calvin Ridley doesn't translate immediately, Travis Etienne's value goes up. So the room for targets for Etienne is hurt because of the Calvin Ridley trade. But I just think the talent, there's a minimal talent discrepancy, but I think the fit for Etienne and fantasy implications is just better than what Walker's going to provide.
Yeah, and the thing with Etienne is that I think he's on a better team. Like, I know Seattle made the playoffs as well, so I don't have a whole lot of room to talk there. But my biggest thing is that we still don't know what Seattle's quarterback position is going to be. Their defense is not very good. They're going to have a good offense, and they're going to need to keep up at times. But if Geno negatively regresses in any way whatsoever, it's going to negatively impact Kenneth Walker. Yeah. And Kenneth Walker's production will go down. And I don't think that's a knock on his talent. I still think he's overly talented and will have a good career. But right now, there's just plenty of guys ahead of Kenneth Walker to where I can't put him in the top 3. Breece Hall's on a better team. Bijan Robinson's probably going to be on a better team. Jonathan Taylor is going to be the offense. CMC is on a better team. Travis Etienne is on a better team. It's just, I think all the offenses are just better outside of maybe the Colts, but the Colts really don't have a choice but to feed the crap out of Jonathan Taylor next season.
Yeah,
but I have Kenneth Walker at 6. But Devin, fell in love again.
I just so we're gonna look at the stats for Saquon Barkley. 352 touches, man. 352. That's the same mark he hit his rookie year. If the Giants can bring him back, and the thing about Saquon Barkley is this is who he's been on a terribly dysfunctional offense for a majority of his career. In 2018, he was playing with the ghost of Eli Manning as his quarterback, and it did not matter. He was the rookie of the year by like a long shot. Saquon is older than Kenneth Walker. I think Saquon is far more talented than Kenneth Walker. This is a guy that averages over 4 yards a carry for his career for one of the worst teams in the league. And that is a number that is weighed down by 1.8 when he played 2 games and had 19 carries in 2020. If Saquon Barkley is healthy, he's a consensus top 10 talent. And I find it hard to argue against him being top 6. Come this time next year, Kenneth Walker will leapfrog him, most likely because he's only getting older and he's going to be on a second contract now with Saquon. But Saquon can be upgraded in many ways. There are plenty of teams that are looking for running back talent. If you slot Saquon Barkley onto the Buffalo Bills, are you going to say that Kenneth Walker is a better option to have this season? For dynasty purposes, Kenneth Walker is going to age better just due to the nature of who he is and how young he is. But if you're in a win-now situation, I would be hard-pressed to pick Kenneth Walker over Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, just the biggest thing about me for Saquon is that he was really the vocal point of the Giants offense. Realistically, he's all the Giants offense. He was all they had. But I don't know what's next for Saquon Barkley. Obviously, he's getting older. We're all getting older. So it's easy to say that. But I will say I'm a bit of a hypocrite when it came to Saquon Barkley. I was not fearful of Christian McCaffrey when it came to injuries, but I was fearful of Saquon Barkley when it came to injuries. But that's because I drafted Saquon Barkley twice in a row and got burned. So it's more of a bias at this point. But I just don't know what's next for Saquon Barkley. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know if he's staying a Giant. I don't know what his role is going to be on a different offense. I don't know if they're going to, load manage him whatsoever in terms of try and, not tear his freaking ACL again. I mean, I don't have him that far down. I still have him in the top 10. And the talent, like I said, is undeniable. He was, like you said, the rookie of the year by a long shot. But then it took 2 seasons of falling apart, and now he's back. He showed off his talent again. But I think this is the highest I could see him. At least you have him at 6. I don't think he could get any higher than that.
I think if he's brought back to the Giants, 6 is his peak. I think he stays at 6 for a couple more years. The thing is, the Giants probably franchise tag him. I hope they don't. I hope they either give him the extension or they just let him walk, because I'm going to give you 5 landing spots for Saquon. And if he would have an improvement in his overall ranking for you, Kansas City Chiefs.
Maybe, or improve my ranking.
Just in general. In general, he would be ranked higher than he is currently today. He gets put onto the Chiefs, signs with the Chiefs.
Still probably not.
Buffalo Bills.
Maybe. I don't know what's going to happen with Josh Allen.
Miami Dolphins. If Josh gets worse, Saquon's value goes up.
Right, but are they still going to run Josh when they have somebody like Saquon Barkley?
They will not. No.
You think that? Yes, that's what I think too. But I just need to see that because I don't know what the offense looks like now without Brian Daboll.
Okay. Miami Dolphins.
Miami, no, it's a committee. Even if he goes to Miami, he's still going to have
Jeff Wilson's a free agent, or he's not a free agent, but
maybe committee isn't the word. But he's going to have guys behind him.
Salvin Ahmed and Myles Gaskin are all expected to become free agents. If Saquon Barkley signs in Miami, he is the bell cow.
I thought Jeff Wilson and or Mostert were staying.
No, they're both free agents. Salvin Ahmed is a restricted free agent. They could keep Gaskin on a cheap deal. They could even bring back Jeff Wilson. Saquon immediately becomes the one, and I don't think
Myles Gaskin.
Philadelphia Eagles. Because if Saquon signs, Miles Sanders is gone. Miles Sanders got punted into the sun. That's bold. That is a bold take.
It's nice, but
Miles
Gainwell
Sanders
still gets
just put up
touchdowns.
1,100 yards.
I understand that, but
I get
Sanders, but like Gainwell gets touchdowns, Hurts still gets touchdowns. It's just everything around them. Like he's behind the best offensive line in the league if he's in Philadelphia. That's not particularly close, but
yeah,
it's the fact that everyone else around him takes away from him, regardless of how talented he is. That's the only thing that bugs me in Philadelphia.
Look at Miles Sanders' touches. Miles Sanders averaged 5 yards a carry behind the best line in football. Saquon put up 4.5 for the New York Giants. So he had 279 touches. Did Miles Sanders?
Okay.
Miles Sanders had 279 touches for the Eagles, 1,350 scrimmage yards. Saquon had 352 touches on the Giants for 1,650 in total yards, 10 touchdowns. Sanders put up 11 touchdowns. Why can't Saquon mimic that efficiency? Saquon has actually Miles Sanders had 4.9 yards per carry last season. Saquon put up 4.4. I'm just saying, comparably, I think Saquon to Philadelphia, in terms of single season value, I think it's top 4, arguably top 5, top 3, depending on how you're looking at it. Chicago's interesting. That would be essentially you're getting the keys. You're going to be like you were in New York, and hopefully they have a better offensive line. Fields can throw the ball.
Yeah.
But I think three out of these options are a better landing spot for him than going back to New York. And I would be hard-pressed to find any other running backs besides maybe Breece, Bijan, CMC, and Taylor that are going to out-touch him and there's not many players that have a higher ceiling than Saquon Barkley whenever they're hitting the ground running and they're healthy. That's the point I'm making with Saquon Barkley. Because
I just don't know who's going to pay him.
And that's the point, too. And that's my thing about Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is a great running back. He's not Saquon Barkley. And I don't think he's ever going to be at the height where Saquon Barkley was.
I do not think Kenneth Walker currently is not a good pass catcher. I do not think he is a very good pass catcher right now. He caught a few passes. He got I think 125 yards from Gino. But right now that kind of hurts his game a little bit, especially in PPR. But I think the age difference, let me see what the exact age difference is. Kenneth Walker is 22 years old. Saquon Barkley is 26. Maybe going on 27. I don't know.
He's younger than CMC. CMC will be 27 by season's end. Saquon's going to just be turning 27 this time next year.
It's close. The future of Saquon Barkley terrifies me a little bit, but he could easily.
That's my thing about Saquon. It's either we're going to get more of what we've had, or he could be a brand new thing. Because as good as CMC was in Carolina, you shipped his ass to San Francisco, and look what happened. Yeah. You give Saquon a good offensive line, I think he could be the RB1.
Yeah. Okay. 7.
God, I love that you love Austin Eckler so much, and I love Austin Eckler as well.
Him, I love everything about him.
He's so good and he's so efficient. I think at some point the bottom's going to fall out for Austin Eckler, not because I'm a hater. He's the same age as Saquon, if I'm correct. He's actually older by almost 2 years. So Eckler's, comparatively speaking, old, and Chargers are healthier next year. His floor is not as high as it was this year, and I think his ceiling gets hurt too. He led the league in touchdowns 2 straight years, if I'm correct.
He finished number 1 in PPR, and he finished 2 the year before.
I understand that, I love it. Yes, this is now a new offense with Kellen Moore. I think we're probably going to see more utilization out of the backup running back because of that Kellen Moore-led offense. I think we're going to see more varied looks from Los Angeles and the Chargers. I don't think there's a more efficient back per touch than a guy like Austin Eckler. In total, he had 5.3 yards per touch for almost 1,700 yards from scrimmage and 18 touchdowns last year. He's an absolute monster. He's a stud. He's healthy. He's everything you want out of a running back. He's a little too old to be at the top end of my Dynasty rankings, which is why I have Kenneth Walker above a guy like Austin Eckler. Do I think Kenneth Walker is better than Austin Eckler today? It's probably closer than the Saquon debate for me. I think Saquon's a better running back than Eckler. I think Eckler's the best fantasy weapon outside of CMC in terms of running backs and how they're used, if that makes sense. Because for everything CMC is, Eckler is that. And for as bad as the Chargers can be at times, when they're healthy and when they're on, they're one of the best offenses in football.
I mean, and the big and this is he finished number 1 in one of the worst second half offenses in football. A team that didn't do jack shit after halftime most of the time.
There's one wrinkle that I would like to bring up for you. Austin Eckler's never finished a season with more than 1,000 rushing yards. Never.
But he makes up.
It doesn't matter. Receiving. I get it. And that's the biggest separator for Austin Eckler, which is why Eckler's age is the biggest thing for me, which is why he's not high on my dynasty rankings.
Yeah,
Eckler could be the one of one this year for a redraft league. I almost took Austin Eckler one of one in a couple leagues last year. He had 722 receiving yards last year. If that wasn't leading the league for a running back, it should have been.
He almost had 1,000 in 2019. He had 993 in 2019. That's wild. He's such a good pass catcher. And I think Kellen Moore, honestly, makes it better. Before Tony Pollard, Zeke was a pretty good pass catching back. And they loved using him like that. If they use,
I just think Eckler's ceiling in terms of touches probably it has to go down. He caught 107 passes last year. That's not going to happen.
I still think he can catch like 90.
If you have a healthy Mike Williams, a healthy Keenan Allen, we draft another receiver. If people get hurt, Austin Eckler could probably catch 90 passes. I don't think they're going to be that hurt next year. Knock on wood. I think the Chargers hopefully get some health luck.
You need to knock on a lot of wood.
Because a big thing, too, is the Joe Lombardi offense always hated to look downfield. And that led to a lot of dump-offs for Austin Eckler. He had 127 targets last year. To put this into perspective, let me just pull up Christian McCaffrey.
But Eckler does go downfield well. He does run some pretty good routes.
Christian McCaffrey, in his best season where he had 116 receptions, had 142 of those. And in that, so he had 142 targets for 116 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving. That's the best Christian McCaffrey ever did in the season.
That's nuts.
This year, 127 targets for Eckler. He couldn't crack 1,000 yards receiving off of 107 receptions. And that, I get it. It's not the end of the world. But it's not like Eckler was spacing the field vertically at the running back position. A lot of those touches were dump-offs. And that's fine. And he's able to get yards in chunks. But this isn't like him running wheel routes and getting a 30-yard bomb.
No, yeah. He only got 5 receiving touchdowns, which is less than 2021. He got 8 back then. But he got 13 rushing touchdowns this year. So he was used a lot at the goal line. It felt like, at least. Just the biggest thing is that watching Kellen Moore so much is I'm not going to say he's similar to the Joe Lombardi offense, because Joe Lombardi's offense sucks. Plain and simple. Dallas looks downfield sometimes. And it's gonna be interesting to see. I can't knock Kellen Moore too much, leading some of the best offenses, but I still think he's gonna use Eckler almost like he used Zeke when Zeke was at his best. But Austin Eckler is going to be better. He's a better pass catcher. He's a better open runner than Ezekiel Elliott ever was.
I think he might fit the Pollard role a bit better. Just because with drafting Isaiah Spiller last year, I think we have fresher legs to actually run between the tackles. If he can develop. I think Eckler is going to have a new role in the offense, for better or worse. He's still going to be the feature back in the offense, but I think what we've seen from him is it won't be drastically different. But I think looking at Eckler as the 20 touchdown guy, 1,400 all-purpose yards, if the Chargers are playing in the Super Bowl, that's not going to be the role that they need him to play. That's the way I'm going to put it. And I think the Chargers should be playing for a Super Bowl next year, or they should be at least within the conversation. They still have to get through KC and other portions of that conference. Kenneth Walker, and in short, 5 years younger, probably has a little bit more competition in the backfield, but he played 2 less games than Eckler, started 6 games less than Eckler did, and he put up about 100 more yards on the ground. And I get it. The Chargers are a better offense. They have better weapons around him. I just think Kenneth Walker, over the course of what you need for a dynasty roster, is going to be better for you right now in this moment to hold for the next 5-6 years than Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is already in conversations of eventually just being bought out due to his contract, which is cheap for running backs on second deals. But the best thing to be in the NFL at the running back position is young. And Eckler is as old as it gets out of this like tier 2, tier 3 mix of guys. Because as good as Eckler has been, he's still not Christian McCaffrey. And that's why I'm so high on McCaffrey, and it's the thing that kind of hurts Austin Eckler. If Eckler were 25, he'd probably be in my top 4. But he's going to be 28 before the season starts. That matters.
I still have Saquon Barkley in the top 10. I still think he's going to be outstanding. I think he'll just negatively regress a little bit. If he stays a Giant, he'll negatively regress. I think if he goes anywhere else that isn't like some of the best teams like Philly or Kansas City, then he might go up. But it would take Walker or Eckler regressing for me to move up Saquon Barkley. You got Josh Jacobs at 8. I do like Josh Jacobs.
I love Josh Jacobs.
But hearing the fact that he would play a tag makes me not love him as much. I don't like seeing him again back in Vegas.
I don't hate seeing him in Vegas. He played for a god-awful team. He led the league in rushing yards. He put up almost 1,700 rushing yards this season. Josh Jacobs had the quietest 2,000-yard all-purpose season ever.
He really did.
Ever. It took Justin Jefferson going Super Saiyan for an entire season for Josh Jacobs to not win Offensive Player of the Year. He was the first team running back for the All-Pro, and it was earned. I hate the Raiders. I can't stand the Raiders. And I'm going to tell you something. Josh Jacobs' rookie year, I drafted the bastard. I've been in on Josh Jacobs since he was drafted. I think he is an incredibly talented running back that just hasn't had the touch capacity. For whatever reason, they brought in Kenyon Drake at one point. They've always had somebody else to try and complement Jacobs when Jacobs is a workhorse. He is the best Bama back that I've seen since Derrick Henry. And currently, I think he's better than Derrick. And a big thing with him is he never put together a fully healthy season. And
he's what, 25?
He's 24. He is he's 25.1 currently. So just turned 25. 25 is a lot better than 29. And if he's going to give us 340 carries per season, he had almost 400 touches last year. And a big thing with Jacobs is like, well, what about the reception work? He literally had an 82.8% catch rate, which is one of the best in the league at running back. He had 400 yards, no touchdowns. I expect him to catch a couple next year. And he's going to be double digits on the ground. And that's that's without us even knowing who the quarterback is going to be for the Raiders.
Yeah.
I hate Josh McDaniels. Devontae Adams is still one of the best receivers in football, so they can't stack the box. If Vegas gets this quarterback thing right, I think Josh Jacobs is going to do his best to try and repeat in the top 5 of finishes. And the thing is, as much as I love Eckler, Jacobs has a better build for what he's going to be doing, and he's younger. And that's a huge deal in Dynasty because I think Jacobs, regardless of where he's going to be for the next 5 years, is going to be around for the next 5 years. Because unlike Derrick Henry, Jacobs has never eclipsed 320 touches until this year. And you get 17 from him, he's going to be over 350 until he's just beyond the hill. Because he put up 4.9 per carry last year. And Vegas's line is nothing to shake a stick at. They're not good. They literally cut Christian Barmore, whoever it was. They drafted a guy in like the first round, cut him a year later. Like
Alex Leatherwood.
Vegas is dysfunctional as anything. And Jacobs was the glue that held them together. Like Josh McDaniels' job, he should just give his check to Jacobs for like half the games next year because he kept him employed.
Seriously. I got Josh Jacobs at 9, though. Like, I can't deny what he did last year. He's 25 years old. I just really don't like it stays in Vegas. I don't like you said, he had the quietest 2,000-yard scrimmage year ever, it feels like. I just obviously don't think I think he'd crack top 5 in rushing yards again next year. I just don't think he'd be number 1. I don't think he could put up 1650 again, especially since I don't know who the Vegas quarterback is going to be. Obviously, like you said, their line is terrible. Their defense is terrible. They're always playing from behind. And Josh Jacobs isn't, I'm not saying he's not a good pass catcher, but he just doesn't like get the yards. He got 53 catches and he only got 400 yards. So it didn't really amount to a whole lot is the biggest problem. So he doesn't take a lot of passes home is kind of the thing. He didn't score any receiving touchdowns. He got 12 rushing touchdowns though, and 1,653 rushing yards. So obviously he put up a damn good season, finished number 3 in PPR, was first and third. Finished 11 the year before and 8 the year before that. So he's near the top 10 the past 3 years. And just had like I won't even call it a breakout season because he's been with the Raiders for 4 seasons now. But we'll see. I just got to see a little bit more of if he can do it again with Vegas. If he goes somewhere else, then I can push him back up for sure. Especially if he goes to a much better team.
I'm confident in Jacobs, even if he stays in Vegas. I think one more year there on the franchise tag isn't going to hurt his value. Granted, he might not be 2,000 from scrimmage, but he's going to be finishing within like 14 to 1,500 yards and probably double-digit touchdowns. So he's going to be an RB1, regardless of how it shakes out. Najee Harris, I have him over Eckler. It pains my heart, and he's the same age as Josh Jacobs, and he's had like only 2 years in the league. Pittsburgh has to get better offensive line-wise, and Kenny Pickett is not the worst thing in the world. I just think Najee Harris from a touch capacity is going to maintain what he's been doing. And if the line gets better, Najee Harris is going to get better. He sucked to start the year, and this is coming from somebody that was starting him weekly during that stretch. He had a terrible season. He had 381 touches for 1,600 scrimmage yards and 10 total touchdowns. It was ugly. It wasn't everybody's favorite way to see Najee Harris. But I think touchdown-wise, he should see some positive. Well, he had 10 his rookie year as well. He averaged 3.8 per carry, which is on par with his first year. If the line gets better, his ceiling is really going to go up. Big Ben leaving hurt his targets, which
100%.
was the biggest thing. I think his floor fell out because of the lack of targets. But this is a third-year player that's averaging 350-plus touches per year. I'm not going to give up on him because of a down year with a rookie quarterback. And they were starting Mitch half of the season. They didn't have a really solid game plan. I think coming into his third year, this is where he's either going to take a leap or he's going to slide down my board. If he was older than 25, Eckler easily slots in at 9, but he's got 2 years and he's still got back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons, and he's got over 250-plus carries to each of those seasons. And he's played every game. Availability is the best ability, and this is a guy that was banged up for a majority of the year, playing with a plate in his cleat, and he still was going out there weekly. So Najee Harris is still top 10. Just depends on where you value the youth.
So I'll let you go right into Eckler with that. You have Eckler at 10, so still cracks the top 10.
If Dynasty football only revolved around the next 3 years of production, Austin Eckler's top 5. But unless you're a contender right now that has a window of 3 to 4 years, Austin Eckler doesn't make sense for your fantasy team. I think Eckler is going to probably be one of the top 5 backs for this year, next year, and probably be top 10 the third year. And then I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think he's a Charger in 5 years. I just don't think that's going to happen. Or he's not going to be a Charger in the capacity that we know him to be. Because the way that the contracts work, the way that the valuation for running backs is, the only running backs I see aging into their like 30-plus years and remaining on teams besides CMC are probably Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. Not even Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's probably gone from Tennessee this season, if not next season. Nick Chubb is going to stay in Cleveland because I think Nick Chubb is one of the most valuable assets in football. He averages 5 yards for his career. You can't replicate that. But I think Eckler could be one of those guys that eventually meets the chopping block. He's not paid an exorbitant amount of money, but the Chargers are going to look to get younger in key spots, and running back is going to be one of them. Their window is lined up with Justin Herbert being 24 right now, if I'm correct. It's like 24 or 23, turning 24. Math's probably wrong. Don't really care to explain it too much, but you get what I'm saying. Like, The Eckler train is going to still continue to chug along for the next 3 years. But by the end of a 5-year run where we still have Jonathan Taylor, we still have Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Bijan, even I think Saquon could probably be still playing in a very effective way because his body is just more akin to doing that at his size. Eckler's undersized as a running back, and he's never been great between the tackles. So if his athleticism dips, the receiving abilities are going to dip as well. I just don't know how he's going to age. Love Eckler with all my heart. He's one of my guys. Charger forever, but I don't know. I think the Titans aren't playing for anything this year, in my opinion.
I don't think it's the most far-fetched take. I really don't.
Derrick Henry costs a lot of money, and if they just want to get cheaper, they cut Robert Woods already. So as it stands right now, Treylon Burks and Derrick Henry are the two best weapons of the Titans. Malik Willis is a non-starter. He's not going to play in football games this coming year unless Ryan Tannehill's dead. Like Ryan Tannehill will not be able to physically touch the field. Then Malik Willis might be backing up the backup. That's how bad Malik Willis was last year. Am I wrong?
He was terrible. He was
god-awful. So Tennessee is not playing for a division. They're not even playing for the playoffs at this point. Cutting ties with Derrick Henry is probably the best possible use of that money at this point because they could try and trade him, but no one's going to trade for him at his salary. They put themselves into a corner, and if they don't cut him this year, because Derrick Henry is going to raise the floor of the Titans, for lack of better terms. Derrick Henry is going to help them win games, and they shouldn't be winning games.
I mean, he's superhuman. He had one major injury a couple of years ago, and we all thought that was it. And he's absolutely superhuman. But the Titans just aren't good anywhere else. They have a good pass rush, and they almost got away with beating the Jaguars in that game if it weren't for that fumble. They literally had to start Josh Dobbs. And that's the reason why they lost that game. So I think it's the most far-fetched take in the world. We can jump into it for sure when we get closer to the draft and stuff, see what the Titans do. Stuff along those lines.
Titans just take Bijan. He falls to him. They're like, okay, cool. See you, Derek.
Derrick Henry to the Bills. There you go. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's the thing about Saquon, too. If Saquon gets cut loose, there's going to be a lot of shuffling of the running back season-long rankings. But yeah, Eckler he's my favorite. He's probably the best value at running back because he's still probably not going to go top 3 in drafts this year. You'll probably be able to get him picks 6 through 7. Like people were like arguing, not Dalvin Cook, but it was similar range. Like Eckler and Dalvin were going within 4 or 5 picks of each other, I felt. And Javonte Williams, give me your piece because
with Javonte, for me, he may not play a couple weeks into this coming season. He tore his ACL. But for me, Javonte Williams is 22 years old. He's on a win-now team. And currently, in this moment, they tried everything in the backfield after he went down, and nothing worked. Literally nothing worked whatsoever. He's got to be the bell cow when he comes back. If he can come back healthy and good, if I think Breece Hall is number 1 after tearing his ACL, I could put Javonte Williams at 10 because they both tore their ACL. And I am not comparing Javonte Williams to Breece Hall in the slightest. Don't get me going on that. Breece Hall is a definitive number 1 because of what we saw in such a short time. We did not see the same thing from Javonte Williams, but if Javonte Williams is the bell cow on a win-now Denver team, he could put up numbers if he's healthy. That's kind of, and he's 22. He has a long career ahead of him. And granted, playing in Denver sucks because of the air and the turf, or the turf sometimes. Like seeing some of those games last year was awful. But I think Javonte easily is number 10 right now. Because I'll go into number 11 because it kind of leads to my point. Because I have Najee Harris at 11. Because Najee is young too. Najee is on an okay team. The pieces around him, Kenny Pickett is okay. The line's got to get better. I just really don't know how to feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe I'm a little, what's the word I'm looking for? In over my head having Javonte Williams over Najee because Najee has been healthy. And I would assume, let's see how old is Najee Harris? He is
24.
Just turned 25. So Javonte's got 2 years on him. on a arguably, hopefully, a better team with Sean Payton. Literally anybody not named Nathaniel Hackett. But that's kind of where I stand. I like Najee. I really do. I just don't. He had a really hard time last year getting in, and guys like I can't remember their names at this point, but he was getting touchdowns stolen from him by like Jalen Warren. So like what? I just don't feel about the Steelers offense moving forward. Najee is young. Najee's a good piece, and he is literally number 11 for me. He literally could hop Javonte at any time. If he has like a good week 1 and 2 and Javonte is out, that would probably put Najee back in the top 10. But right now, free agency could change my mind if Denver brings in like different guys. But currently at this very moment, I just have Dante at 10 because he did pick it up Johnny's right. He did pick it up towards the end of the season. I can't deny that. I just need to see a little bit more out of Pittsburgh as a whole. Like he did well with Kenny. He did not do well with Mitch at all, which to be fair, nobody did. Except when they beat Tom Brady, because that makes sense. But once I see a little bit more from Pittsburgh and their offense, or even some things change in free agency, Najee could easily hop over Javonte in 10, especially if Denver signs somebody. But right now, I think Javonte is going to be the number 1 back in Denver week.
I do not.
6.
I don't agree. And even if he is, I'm just going to give you a news flash. Javonte Williams is just DeAndre Swift. This is a guy that for his entire like high-level professional football career outside of high school has not been the guy. He's been sharing backfield since his days at North Carolina. You know that guy that's backing up Breece Hall, who I thought could actually, be a solid starting NFL running back in Michael Carter? Yeah. He was taking carries away from Javonte Williams. Javonte is not Breece. And the biggest thing for me is Javonte didn't even get Breece's injury. He tore his ACL. He also tore the ACL, also tore his LCL, and damaged his posterior lateral corner. They compared this to the J.K. Dobbins injury. And unless he has a miraculous recovery, I don't expect him back until maybe midseason, week 6 through week 8. And at that point, they're going to have somebody in-house to rush the ball. I think David Montgomery going to the Broncos makes a ton of sense. And if David Montgomery's there, is Javonte Williams that much better? I don't think so, especially coming off of the injury. This is the type of injury that I'm sure he can come back from due to like the nature of sports science and injuries, but it leads into my DeAndre Swift thing. The biggest problem for DeAndre Swift is that his coaches hate him. I know it's stupid to say, but they just like the other guys more. Jamal Williams is not more talented than DeAndre Swift. He runs a bit harder and he doesn't shy away from contact, and it led to Jamal Williams getting a ton of touches. If I pulled up the stats right now, we'll look at it real quick. Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams had 262 carries compared to DeAndre Swift's 99.
Oh,
I repeat, 262 carries to DeAndre Swift's 99. Would you like to take a guess at how many yards per carry Jamal Williams averaged?
3.2.
4.1. Would you like to guess how many Swift averaged per carry?
3.2.
5.5.
Oh.
DeAndre Swift is as talented as damn near any running back in the NFL today in terms of a per-touch basis. The Lions just have to give him touches. For his career, he's only gone over 200 touches once, and he finished the year with over 1,000 scrimmage yards. The guy is uber talented. He finished off his third year, played in 14 games, put up 931 yards and 8 tutties with 1 fumble. Looking at this, Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns last year, and he only had 200 more. So Jamal Williams had 200 more yards than DeAndre Swift on the year, and he totaled up more than 130 more touches on the season. If DeAndre Swift was ever given the keys to an NFL offense, he is going to be a top 10 dynasty guy, and I don't think it's going to be close. I would bet on DeAndre Swift probably aging better than Javonte Williams because, well, yes, he's dealt with shoulder injuries. He's never dealt with a major tear in a knee. And call me old-fashioned, the Breece Hall thing is different because he didn't tear 2 ligaments. And in the same vein, he's a year younger. And Breece has been the guy everywhere he's been. Javonte's still fighting for footing in offenses, and he couldn't even beat out Melvin Gordon for the last 3 weeks of 2 years ago. I'll believe for Javonte Williams, I will believe it when I see it, but I'm not going to jump the fence before I've been given the evidence that I need to take that leap. For as high as DeAndre Swift is on my list, you could say the same thing for Javonte on yours because you need to see it, like from both of them. I need to see Javonte come back healthy. I need to see him lead an offense out of a backfield. And I just need to see DeAndre Swift get more than 250 touches. That's what I need to see. His career 213. That is just it. He needs more touches. Point blank.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just because of his coaches hating him, it makes me just not want to buy in at all. I really just can't buy in.
Who knows? Maybe next year it finally just clicks and there's like an even disparity. Because if you gave Swift what Javonte got his rookie year, I personally think on a per touch basis, because Javonte had a total of his rookie year, he put up 1,200 scrimmage yards on 246 touches. DeAndre Swift had 147 touches this year, and he put up 931 yards. He had 213 last year. He had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. I don't think the separation is much between the two, and I think Swift, in terms of like his overall body of work, his overall health, should age better, in my opinion, for Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand that. I know you got to go here in a few minutes, so we'll just get through this real quick. I have Nick Chubb at 12. I have Nick Chubb at 12. You have Stevenson at 12, and then we have it flipped. The only reason why I've seen Nick Chubb do it play. Are you okay over there?
Freaking love me some Ramondre Stevenson. That dude won me so many leagues last year. He's 25, which is insane because, you know, you would think he'd be younger, but it is his 3rd year in the league this coming year. Ramondre Stevenson is everything I wanted him to be. I'll keep it at that. It's just Ramondre Stevenson did what I hoped DeAndre Swift would do this year. He beat out the guy in camp, or the guy got injured. Whatever happened, Stevenson became the guy. And his skill set, I think, is perfect for the modern NFL. And unless Damian Harris is revived like a phoenix, I think Stevenson's going to command this backfield for years.
And that's my only problem is that I don't really like Damian Harris, but I really just don't understand what happens in New England and running backs.
Yeah.
Like I have Ramondre at 13. That's just my biggest problem.
If Stevenson ever leaves New England, his value is going to go up whenever it happens. Because this is a guy that he had 279 touches last year. He had almost 1,500 scrimmage yards. He only had 6 touchdowns. I think the discount is officially gone for Ramondre, but I still think he's going to be one of the best values this year in redraft for running backs. He's probably going to be back 10 through 14, depending on what people value. He's still going to be a steal. I think the touchdown equity is going to go up. I think he's bound to do double digits next year. And he averaged 5 yards a carry. He's efficient as hell.
So let's see. 14. I have DeAndre Swift at 14, mainly because his coaches hate him. And I think you went well in on why you have Javonte at 14.
I
think you allowed the spot if Javonte does do well, second half of next season, he could move up.
He's not cracking my top 10 personally. He can move up to like 11, I think. But
I'm just kidding. I kid. Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs, we just have them flipped. I literally just don't have Jahmyr Gibbs in the top 15 because I have no idea where he's going.
I just think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be Alvin Kamara 2.0, and whoever gets him, congratulations. Like if Buffalo drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to take him in the 3rd round. This is going to be fun. Because that's kind of what happened with Breece Hall. It was like he was going 3rd, 4th round, and I only took him once because I was like, I just don't know what the Jets are going to do this year. I can't bank on the Jets.
The biggest thing too is that Derrick Henry is old. He has old in terms of running backs return. Could not get JT 28 for Josh Jacobs. You hate to see it. Throw it a pick. Fuck it.
Yeah,
actually, Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor could have similar.
And if your team craters and you just got
year.
Josh Jacobs in the 1-of-1 next year, I'd be pissed. So yeah, I'd hold on to Jacobs. Just because if the Raiders suck and Jacobs does nothing, and that pick that you traded becomes the 1-of-1, Caleb Williams could have been your guy, and that would be
that is something
real
to think about. Okay, so we got through 16. Like I said, I had Jahmyr Gibbs at 16. He has Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, like I said, has a lot of miles, but right now, if you got him in a little bit later in a Superflex startup, I wouldn't be mad. He's a good win now type of guy because he's gonna get the workload. But in terms of 3 or 4 years from now, I have no idea if Derrick Henry's still running the ball in 4 years.
If you're in a dynasty startup and you can get Derrick Henry in the 6th round, don't think about it. Just draft him.
Seriously.
At that point, he's going to be your flex or starting running back for a year. Just enjoy the ride. Because I don't think he's going to be a Titan. And if he's not a Titan, I think it's better for him in terms of his just overall long-term value and probably his efficiency in the macro or the micro.
Yeah. All righty. That'll do it for running back rankings, at least for this week. Devin's got to get on out of here. He's got to.
I have a bedtime.
Actually. Wow.
My alarm's set for 5 a.m., my friend. So stay thirsty, my friends.
Right there with you. So next week we'll jump into wide receivers. It's going to be a wild one. I think the top 2 or 3 is going to be like a consensus per se, but it'll be interesting to see. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And then the week after that will be tight ends, and then the week after that, free agency will have just kicked off, so we'll have a shit ton to talk about. Rankings will probably change.
Yeah,
as soon as they come out, they will change.
Yep, 100%. But yeah, thank you to everybody for tuning in, Johnny. Appreciate you stopping in. Always fun. And
yeah, always appreciate talking with you, Johnny. Obviously, we're always here to talk anything Dynasty, fantasy, anything like that jazz. So like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. We're here every Monday night. Like I said, next week is you trade your 2024 first for Cooper Kupp. I mean, that's not the worst.
If you're running now, go ahead.
I think Cooper Kupp, I won't get into it too much. I think Cooper Kupp could be a sneaky redraft pick next year. So I think some people might forget about him.
He was the wide receiver 1 before he got hurt.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, that'll be the last thing from us besides the final word for you guys. So from Austin and myself, thank you for tuning in, and peace.